In this episode, Golden and I discuss Season 3 of American Gods. Full speed ahead.
The Omega Beam. Full power. The Omega Beam.
Welcome to the Omega Beam number 120. I'm your host, Orrin Merton. So, American Gods was a very popular and, in my opinion, excellent novel written by Neil Gaiman many years ago, almost 2 decades at this point. And it was in and out of option hell in Hollywood for a while, but finally it was made into a TV series streaming on Starz. It has gone on for 3 seasons now, and we're going to talk about Season 3, which just ended and is available in its entirety for streaming on Starz in the USA. Not sure where else around the globe. And let's go. I am here with Golden to talk about Season 3 of American Gods streaming on Starz. So, observant listeners of the Omega Beam may have noticed that we didn't go over American Gods Seasons 1 or 2. I couldn't have been more excited when I heard that they were turning my favorite novel into a TV series, and that Neil Gaiman was going to be involved as executive producer and was looking over scripts and consulting and things like that. So, the first season stuck to the events of the story, but really twisted them. And like so many people who have invested themselves in a story, I really just wanted to see the book in video form. In Season 2, they went even farther from the book, but still keeping the events of the book, just twisting them all around. And once again, I acknowledged that it had a lot of quality to it, good acting, really stylishly done, great effects, but I still was sort of turned off. However, Season 3, it went so far from the book, now it's its complete own thing. And it's not a sort of different version of the story I read that I don't like as much. Now in Season 3, it's a brand new thing that just sort of uses the basic backstory of American Gods. And because it's so different, it actually allowed me to get into it as just its own thing and not the book. So Season 3, I actually really enjoyed. What do you think?
I've enjoyed the series all along, but I think Season 3, to me, for some reason, Season 3 I was able to get into it even more, and I enjoyed it more. I think I enjoyed Season 3 than Season 1, and Season 2 is probably my least favorite, because I think there was something off about it.
Yeah, Season 2, I think, felt kind of like it was treading water. Like, maybe originally they wanted to kind of go and do their own thing, but for whatever reason, they stuck a little close while changing it enough. In a way, they kind of did what I would, in my opinion, was in a sense the worst of all worlds. It wasn't so different that people could just get into it as its own story, but it also wasn't the book. So you had people who wanted something new not getting it. You had people who wanted the book not getting it. Whereas I think Season 2, they were kind of trying to find their feet. Were they going to go completely in another direction, or were they going to kind of stick to the book? And I'm glad that they went the way they did. I think Season 3, like you said, it was much easier to get into. It was much more engrossing. And they just took these characters and just said, well, given this new story that we're telling, where would they go?
Yeah, the book was just more of a general outline.
Right. And I think it really benefited the story that they're telling. And it's not that they kept nothing from the book. We generally have been relatively spoiler-free when talking about television shows, so I don't want to give too much, even though this is a book that's been around for decades. But in Season 3, they keep the major event of this part of the book, two major events of this part of the book, and a major location, the location of Lakeside. So certainly it's not so far off the book that it has nothing to do with it. But what happens within those things is its own deal and completely new. And I like that. I mean, I'm not one of those people who, if it's not the exact words of the book, it's terrible. I'm willing to go on a completely new adventure. And finally, in season 3, it was a completely new adventure. So I like that aspect of it. And as I said before, I think the casting, I think, has been really, really good. The main characters, Shadow Moon is played by Ricky Whittle, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, who does a fantastic job. Ian McShane, of course, is excellent at everything, and he's excellent as Mr. Wednesday. Emily Browning, I think, as Laura Moon. They gave her character a ton more to do in the series than in the book, and I think she handles it. I think she does a good job with it.
I love the Bilquis scenes.
Yeah, this is a name I'm going to get.
There's a really wonderful scene towards the beginning of season 3 with her trapped in a room, and just what occurs is just beautiful.
I agree, and the actress, who I believe is African, and her name is Yetide Badaki, and I apologize if I got that wrong. She is one of the better parts of the show, and it's interesting because that is one of those things. Her character, Bilquis, is exactly what I was talking about in the way that they've changed it. So this is a spoiler not of the series, but of the book. She's in the first chapter of the book, and a major character in the first chapter of the book. And you don't really hear about her at all until a number of chapters later, she's hit by a car and killed. And that's basically it. That's her entire role in the book. But she's a major character in the series.
I think that, and I'd be curious to, we haven't done any research on it, but I'd be curious to see if Neil Gaiman decided that he wanted to encourage them to bring the female characters more to the front.
Wouldn't surprise me if
than he did in the original text.
Yeah, that could very well be. I know that originally it was sort of original mission statement was we're going to update it because obviously a novel written in the 90s, the technology was different and things like that. So that was going to be something they were definitely going to do. But I don't know if they initially had intended to just tell a story tell the same story that made more sense 20 years later, or if they had always intended to go off the rails. Behind the scenes, for those who follow that kind of thing, there's been a lot of turnover. The Brian Fuller, one of the original co-creators, left after season 1, and then the showrunner, I think, who was left after season 2. So the behind-the-scenes creative teams have changed. Neil Gaiman has obviously gone off and done a lot of things since this was set up. He did Good Omens, which was amazing. He's currently working with the team that's getting Sandman series going for Netflix. So he's had a ton of things to do, and I'm sure that the others who had been involved either were fired or quit. They each have their own thing. So it seems like the team they've got now is actually doing quite a good job and has quite a good feel for this story. But yeah, they may have taken it and just said, yeah, here's what we're going to do with it now, and gone their own way with it. I don't know. But I do think that every season had sort of set up a cliffhanger for the forthcoming season, and season 3 is no exception. And I think the cliffhanger, or actually plural cliffhangers, that they set up are really engaging. And in the past, after season 1, I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to watch season 2 because I love the novel, but that wasn't very great. Then after the end of season 2, I was like, oh boy.
Well, there was a lot of drama at the end of season 2 too.
Yeah.
In real life. not on the show.
Right. Yeah, we talked about Bilquis, one of the major characters who was not a huge part of the book, being given a major part. Well, Mr. Nancy, played by Orlando Jones, is arguably one of the 2 or 3 most major characters in the book. In fact, Mr. Nancy got his own, well, his sons got their own book, but he was the central sort of twisting point of the quote-unquote sequel to American Gods, which was called Anansi Boys, and Anansi is Mr. Nancy. So it was about his kids. So he looms incredibly large over American Gods and that entire mythology that was created. And yet Orlando Jones very vocally let everyone know that he was unceremoniously let go after season 2 because they decided to kill the character. Or that's the wrong term. They didn't kill the character.
Didn't have the character appear.
They just are no longer dealing with that character as of the end of season 2. And that was, for those of us who read the book, we were like, huh? How can they do this? The answer is because the story they're telling is a different one. And it's not a bad one. And I have to say that for those who haven't been following with American Gods, I don't know if I could recommend jumping right into season 3 because there's a lot you wouldn't have caught in seasons 1 and 2. But I would say that if you're waiting until it gets good, the answer to that is season 3 is when it starts really getting good. So, I don't know, maybe read a summary of seasons 1 and 2 and then watch season 3.
Yeah, I'd still go watch them.
Yeah,
I'd still recommend watching them because it's still beautiful, and I think what I really enjoyed about season 2 was the relationship with Sweeney and Laura.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very well filmed, and it is a gorgeous show. I generally don't like the more gory shows, but the gore is sparse. You can go episodes after episodes without really any gore. So it's not too bad. There's also, nudity and sex, but same thing. It's not every episode.
And
it
tends to be more male nudity than female nudity.
It is. It's very well done. It's very beautiful. And if you're not familiar with the premise, it's simply put, when people emigrated to America, they brought their gods with them. And their faith manifested in those gods being real here in America. The story is basically what goes on with those gods. And the story, I think, is really engaging. If you like urban fantasy, if you like mythology, it's a really good story. And of course, what I think makes it so compelling is that since these gods were created by human belief, they are very human. I mean, they may have abilities that humans don't, but they are people. And in fact, the story becomes a very human story.
Yeah, I mean, you still get to, like you've said, Laura's character is not very fleshed out in the book, and you get to see her develop in different ways in the series that never had a chance in the book. You get to spend time with each of the characters in the series, which I think is definitely a benefit. Every character gets a chance to shine.
I think that's something that the book even didn't necessarily do, and that, as I said with Bilquis, some just come and go because they're kind of just there to make a quick point and then they're out.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's well done. Like you said, the filming, the cinematography, all of that. The pacing is really good. I mean, I very often at the end of each episode was like, no, that's it? And was ready for the next episode already.
Sure, and I think to the writing's credit, I think that serialized storytelling, they try to end not just every season, but every episode with maybe not necessarily a cliffhanger, but with enough of of the story to be continued that you're excited to watch. And I think they did a good job with that in this show.
Yes. They did an especially good job.
Well, thank you, Golden.
You're welcome.
And that's it for this episode. You can find the show notes at theomegabeam.com/120. If you liked this episode, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those reviews help other people find our podcast. If you have any suggestions, please drop us a line at info@theomegabeam.com. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.
The Omega Beam. Full stop.